Out of all the Fallout titles we behold in our chests, which of these games is the absolute best? The one that captures its essence wholly and purely? Which is the one that's the most immersive, the most enjoyable, and the most faithful to the idea of Fallout itself? Why, obviously, it's Fallout 4, the absolute best game in the series, the one that redefined the franchise for all. The beautiful and horrifically wonderful environments, the colors, the renders, the animations. But let's not overlook the crafting system, the fact that every single piece in the environment junk can be used to craft better guns, better laser guns, better melee guns, better armor, and better guns.
I have to go away.
But the single most important and impactful aspect of this game is the settlement system, to actually live out the concept that these games are about. Reemergence, resettlement, rebuilding, it's all there. Of course, that is overlooking the fact that you have fewer dialogue choices than before, no way to play as a pacifist character, even though literally no one cared about that in Skyrim, but worst of all, these factions kinda suck. There's no nuance to their ideologies, no way to convince them to change their evil, or stupid ways, leaving the bumpkin libertarians as the only valid path forward. Another settlement needs my help, yeah, and another game needs my attention. But let's not get out of hand. After all, it was Fallout New Vegas, the absolute best game in the series, the one that redefined the franchise for all, that owns that overall excellence. The expanded lore of the original two games, the exciting rising conflict between two factions that are both the wrong choice for the region in equally interesting ways. Characters are flawed but reasonable. You can find the deepest and most fleshed out people from the least important people. It's just that well written. The fact that most characters you speak with come from places far greater than the map you're in adds to that great sense of purpose. That purpose reveals itself when you choose a faction, for you're not just choosing the ending. You're making a timeline. You're making history by being an essential part of it. This game is perfect. And if anybody points out a legitimate criticism or any other kind of seriously grievous flaw, we can just say this. Literally not their fault. Just blame Bethesda. Terrible glitches and crashing? 18 months. Not a whole lot of interesting dungeons? 18 months. What about the lack of endgame content so we can see in person the impact we've had on the world, because otherwise you're leaving players who want to experience what the full game has to offer in a single playthrough to force themselves to hold back from engaging the most important part of the game just so they don't miss out on the dozens of awesome side quests? 18 months. You had 4 DLCs to figure something out! But I'm just being funny. And speaking of funny, I'm reminded of Fallout 2, the absolute best game in the series, and the one that redefined the franchise for all, which provided a world where you can impregnate a mob boss's wife or daughter and produce the next heir to their crime kingdom.
Never having known his real father.
That's pretty funny. You could also star in Triple Twitter films for extra money, along with an absolute buttload,
no pun intended,
of various other crazy things you can do in this rich and somewhat civilized environment. Freedom! The lore is rich, the story is rich, the bad guy is
an unfortunate and unforeseen accident.
It's just another example of Fallout 2's iconic balance of dark comedy with excessive comedy. Perhaps a bit too much comedy for fans of Fallout 1, the absolute best game in the series, the one that defined the franchise for all, which painted a perfect tone of what a post-nuclear world would actually be like. Total bleakness, depravity, with just a faint glimmer of hope. The perfectly crafted story in how a simple task of finding a water chip evolved into a war for the future of the region. The subtlety of its characters, the nuance of the moral choices, and the complexity of the master's motivation. Even in the happiest ending, you're rejected by your overseer and you leave the game satisfied, but empty. But you couldn't run like this! And that's why Fallout Brotherhood of Steel is the absolute Okay, that's a joke. But this is no joke. That's something you can do in Fallout 76, the absolute best game in the series, and the one that redefined the franchise for all. The fact that I personally left the vault to see that somebody, a real person mind you, had planted a farm for new players to pluck potatoes from.
Feel free to take any food that's grown. I have some potato plants. Yeah.
Friendly and welcoming. There's no other Fallout game that can have this.
If he makes it, I'm quitting. He made it. Money, money, money.
There's a massive open world with the greatest of all Fallout environments.
West Virginia!
Seriously, this is the standard. This is the open world, never-ending, plop your cabin wherever you want game that I wanted from this series. And I can easily ignore the glitches. The glitches. The other glitches.
The other glitches and
The fact that all the cool stuff is locked behind an incredibly steep paywall, and I can even ignore the fact that I have a very, very, very limited storage capacity for the junk I collect, junk collection being the only reason this particular game is fun to me. At least I can hoard to my heart's content in Fallout 3, the absolute best game in the series, and the one that truly defined the franchise for what it is today. An open-world, first-person RPG in 2008? That just wasn't done before. With guns, and it showed. Everyone ate this up. The vast slow-mo, the vast emptiness that was full of potential encounters, the terrifying ghouls, and the mighty super mutants. The dark subways, the cold filter over everything, all contributing to that ultimate reason this game is superior. Atmosphere. Which is a word that just means feeling, which objectively is not an objective thing, so we're back to square one. This game is garbage, and here's why. No, it's better than you think, and here's why. Oh yeah? My video's an hour and a half. Oh yeah? Well, my video's almost 2 hours long. Hey, ladies, please. You're both pretty dumb. What about me? Can I get in on this? Oh, come on. No. That is way too long for a mere opinion, let alone a response to an opinion. Out of principle, I refuse. Well, that's not fair. Well, neither is any of this. Do you see what's happening here? We are not debating over the individual Fallouts. We're attempting to debate something else, but we are all too self-centered to see it. We're pretending to compare and contrast certain games, when really we're just measuring standards. Our own personal idea of what Fallout means, we're measuring that against other players' standards, and forgoing the humility that says, hey look, this is just how I'm wired, okay? I happen to like this one the most. Oh really? Well, I had some problems with that one, but I can see where you're coming from. I happen to like this one. Interesting. Let's talk about that. This is what we should be doing, because your opinion is not just opinion. It's yours. You need to be explained. You need to explain where you come from so that other people can see how valid your thought process is. But instead of trying to understand each other's roots, we choose to bicker and belittle each other because of our fruits. We don't have to think the same way to have valid assessments over the same thing. But perhaps that's what happens when we all play these games a little too often. Maybe constant engagement with the medium that tells us we are literally the most important being in the world probably isn't doing any good for our egos. Just a thought. Take it or leave it. But I don't wish to end on a sour note, so let's consider something we can all possibly agree on. The fact that the first time playing these games was complete wonder. That feeling only an open-world game of untapped potential can provide. The moment before we all played Fallout 3, New Vegas, 2, 1, 4, whatever, we could all agree that that first unveiling was one of the best gaming experiences ever. This brings me to my conclusion. What are the greatest open-world games of all time? Using the same principle, it's Breath of the Wild, The Witcher 3, and Cyberpunk 2077. And if you're wondering how I came to this conclusion, well, simple. I've never played them before. And isn't that what we just agreed on? That the best game is the one we haven't played yet? So, on that note, Fallout Tactics